Hello everyone. Today we are going to talk about past progressive and simple past. So we're going to check the grammar rules and also to give you some examples of how to connect both of them or how to use both in a different ways. Welcome back. So let's talk about past progressive. Past progressive put emphasis on the course of an action in the past. So in the case of statements, we use this formula. We put the subject, the was or were, and the base form of the verb plus ing. So to give you some examples, for the subject, I, he, and she, we use the was. For you, we, you, and they, we use the were. So also when we put the sentences together, we can read it like I was reading, I was working. He was reading, he was working. You were reading, you were working. But also in the case you want to make it negative, you just put the not between the was and the base form of the verb plus the ing. So I was not reading, you were not reading. So some other examples, I was reading a book, you were reading, they were sleeping. So sometimes we put also a complement at the end of the sentence. So it's not something that it's done just with the base form of the verb plus ing. So the past progressive also can be done in a question form. For example, this is the formula. We put first the was or were, then the subject, then the base form of the verb plus ing, and then the complement. For example, I have this sentence. Were you working last night? So I was asking that person if he was working or she was working last night. So I made some modification to the form, but in this case I put the question symbol at the end, so that means this is a question. So let's talk about simple past. Simple past put emphasis on completed past actions. So the base formula for simple past is this. We have a subject, a verb in the past, and a complement. For example, I ate chicken last night. So that means I had a chicken for my dinner last night. So it's pretty easy, but also you can mix simple past with past progressive sometimes, and I will explain that. So take into account these rules. So for example, past progressive emphasizes on the duration of the action, not its completion. So for example, he was sleeping last night. We know he was sleeping, but not when he stopped. So that means at some time he stopped sleeping, but we don't know. So that's why we use past progressive. So also we use past progressive with specific time in the past. So for example, he was working at 11:55 p.m. We know he was working and we know the time, but we don't know when he stopped. Another example, use the past progressive with the simple past to talk about an action that was interrupted by another action. Use the simple past for the interrupting action. Remember that. So for example, he was working when she called. So he was working at some time, but then he was stopped because she called. So that's the way you can combine both past progressive and simple past. Remember this. Use when to introduce the simple past action, and use while to introduce the past progressive action. For example, he was working when she called. while he was working, she called. So the last thing, use the past progressive with while to talk about two actions in progress at the same time in the past. So use past progressive in both clauses. For example, while I was working, Erika was calling me. So that's my explanation. Thank you.